Sky howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike at Red Creek Mafia. How's everybody doing? Um, I got a good guest tonight. I've been trying to get him on for some time. Good friend of mine too. Um, I went on his show probably about, give or take, about 2 months ago. I did meet him through Robin McRae, but I've always watched his stuff even before I knew Robin, and it was just really good to meet the guy. I'm going to go ahead and say hello to a few people in the chat real quick. Christy Sci-Fi, Sibylla, how are you? Long Island Bigfoot, Jessica, how are you? Let's see who else we got here. David Black, good to see you. Randy, good to see you. Anyways, yeah, I've been trying to get him on for some time. He's very busy, you know. He's got a lot of his own stuff going on, and give or take. And it took a minute, but he finally hit me up the other day and said that he can come on, and I'm glad that he did. And this guy is very knowledgeable. He's been in the business for a long time. He's had his own encounters, and I can say a lot, but I don't want to ruin it for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him back in. Super Duke, what's up, man?
Howdy.
Duke is not used to doing stuff this early, but he did it for me, thank God.
I get bad glare in the studio here when the sun's up. As you can see, the sun's starting to go down. And when it's up a little bit more, it's like you can't do anything. Plus, I was trying to get Christmas presents mailed out, and I wasted about an hour standing in line at the post office. Didn't even close the front of it and went, well, I have to leave because otherwise I'm going to miss Mike's show. So I got here and got the computer on at exactly the top of the hour.
And we almost couldn't do the show today because of why?
Oh, besides my ridiculously too full schedule. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I spilled a whole bunch of boiling hot coffee on my arm yesterday morning and boiled it. So I've got no skin on my wrist right now.
Going to be a naughty list after tonight.
So there's my birthday present.
Because there's not going to be a Santa. But no, kicking down doors isn't.
Took all the skin off my arm.
Quieter approach. There's got to be another way in.
Well, I'm not laughing. I know that hurt and everything. I'm just, So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you the same question I ask everybody. What made, you can go back to the 70s or 80s, what made Bigfoot real for you?
Seeing it when I was 10.
10? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I got the long version of it on my show. I was out sledding with one of my friends. It was second week in February 1972, 20 below, warm snap, because it had been 50 below the week before. All-time record 52 below, actually, in the county next to us. All-time record low at that point. So finally it warmed up to 20 below so we could go sledding. And we decided to go way back to this new sledding hill that we had discovered way back in the woods behind my house that you couldn't really get to in the summer because there was a big bog in the way. But when it's 20 below, the bog's frozen. You can just slide your little sled right across it, even if you can't walk on it. So we got over to the far side of it. It's about the length of a football field. On the other side, there's a steep hill. Of course, it's all wooded. This is woods, you know. There's trees in the way. So in order to use it, you would have to like make your own slide for it. In other words, your own little luge run. So we had been back there the week before doing exactly that. There was another little break in the cold, and when we got back there, we found this spot and we made our own little luge run there. And it turned out the big hill on the far side of the swamp was actually 3 big hills stacked on top of each other. So it was really great. And we were really looking forward to it. But there was no straight downhill from the top. Yeah, there was a couple switchbacks. You had to go down really fast and then make a tight turn, and then go down really fast, make another tight turn, and then go down really fast, and you're on the bog. And so there was no straight downhill. That wasn't happening. So because of the how ridiculously steep it was, we had to make sure there were big supers on those curves, or you were just going to go fly into a tree at top speed. So we came back the following week, and everything had frozen again. So we were pretty confident that our sledding run was now about as soft as concrete, and the supers would definitely hold up if we tried them. So me and Dave trudged back there, and this is about a mile further than that, 1.5 miles, 2 miles back in the woods at least. Yeah, hard for me to guess. Probably 2 miles. Anyway, a lot of trudging. There was a snowmobile trail there during the winter for part of it, so we could, walk on that. But then the rest of it was just plow through waist deep snow and use your sled as much as you could. So we finally got up there, and there was just 2 of us, me and Dave, and I decided to take the first run down the hill and just go down slow. And, holding your arms out and putting your legs out and just kind of go slowly down it. And everything seemed to work out good. So then Dave went up and he took a little bit faster run down the hill. And then I was going to go up and take another run down the hill. And what we were doing is, since there was only 2 of us, and this was highly dangerous, even though we were kids, we had that much common sense. We're way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. If we get wrapped around a tree, we're in trouble. Plus it's 20 below. So anyway, one of us would be halfway down the hill as the other guy came down the hill. So in case he wiped out or something, the other one would be right there to take care of you. So I was going to attempt the first high speed run down the hill, because I did the slow one, Dave did the medium speed one. Now I'm going to try and do the fast one. Get up to the top of the hill, put my sled down, same position. Now the top of the hill is pretty much barren that time of the year because no leaves on the trees, and largely deciduous trees up there. It was popple and birch and stuff, but there was one big black spruce there, which is, if you're on top of the hill looking away from the hilltop, it was on your right hand side. So as I put my sled down, I noticed something looked different than it did the previous time that I had been up there, and I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And I started to turn around and jump on my sled, and it just had my attention so much. I had this thought in my mind like, hey, that's not right. That ain't right. There's something wrong with this picture. So I turned around and I looked again. That the black spruce had 3 tree trunks. Well, it didn't have 3 tree trunks the last time I was up there. And 2 of the tree trunks had long gray hair on them. And the last time I checked, big black spruce trees don't have long gray hair on them. So that got my attention. So then the first thing I thought is that it was some other kids had discovered our sledding run. That was their legs underneath the lowest branch. And that now we're going to have to share our sledding run with everybody else. And that really sucked, because there was a sledding hill a couple miles away from there that was all clear that all the local kids used. And it was always crowded, and there were snowmobiles there. And that's why we tried to make our own sledding run. This epically didn't work out very well. So I'm looking at these 3 tree trunks, 2 with hair, and I'm going, okay, somebody's got furry snow pants on. Because back in those days, they actually made snowmobile pants that had like fur on the outside of them. It was fake fur, but it looked, kind of real. So I figured it was some kid wearing those. So he must be peeking at me through the branches. So I looked up to about 5 or 6 feet where his face should be, and I'm looking, and there's like nothing there. And then I notice up above that, about 3 feet, there's something moving around. So I turn my head a little bit and look up there. And there's this creepy face looking at me. And he's got one hand holding the branch down below him, and the other one's kind of pushing it up a little bit so that he can just get that much of his face there. And apparently he was not expecting me to notice him because he got this startled expression all of a sudden. And then he gave me this grin. And anybody that's ever seen the picture of Mr. Smiley, that was it. He's giving me this vicious grin with his shark-like teeth, and it's definitely not friendly. And then it took me about 1/10 of a second to jump on my sled and break the world luge speed record going down that steep hill. And I didn't care if I went off the super and got killed, because it was better to go off the super and smash into a tree and get killed than to get caught by that, whatever the hell that thing is up there. So as I went past Dave about halfway down the hill, he noticed I was going ridiculously fast and didn't seem to care. And my eyes were kind of huge, and my face was whiter than it should be, even given that it's 20 below. And so he started to stand up, and I went, "Run like hell," as I flew past him as fast as I could. And when I got to the bottom of the hill, I didn't stop or anything. I started kicking my arms and legs to increase momentum that I had already built up from coming down the hill. And I literally went about 2/3 of the way across that football field length bog before I slowed down and had to like actually put more effort into it again. But yeah, essentially I was so terrified I just abandoned Dave. I assumed he was going to like take my advice and run like hell, I guess. So I took off, and then I got to the end of the fire lane, which is just about 100 yards from the house, and I stood there and waited for him. And he was about 20, 25 minutes behind me when he finally got there. And he never said anything. Apparently, he didn't see anything. But it was also peculiar that he didn't ask me why I just suddenly abandoned the whole thing and came back again.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you this, Duke. So that happened when you was like 10 years old, right?
10, yep.
Now was that in Montana or
No,
was
Minnesota.
Minnesota? Okay.
I grew up in Minnesota.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When that happened to you at 10 years old, when did you get a chance to really, I mean, was there a gap in between when you got older, or did you get into Bigfoot right then and there?
Well, I probably had hysterical amnesia and forgot the whole thing happened until 2 years later when I was hanging around with Dave, and Dave goes, "Hey, why'd you run away that one time when we were out sledding?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Hey, you remember when blah, blah, blah?" And I'm like, I don't remember what you're talking about. And he finally gave me enough details that it flashed back in my memory again. And then I was super pissed off at him because I actually remembered what happened, which was not a pleasant memory. So it took about another, say, after I remembered was about 2 years after that. So I would have been 12. And it was probably 2 more years after that I wouldn't really go in the woods at all. And it surprised me that my parents never picked up on this. For me, like going in the woods constantly too, I don't want to go in the woods at all ever.
Yeah.
Or if he does go in the woods, he seems to have like about 1.5 times as much weaponry as Rambo might carry if he was going into the woods. So no questions were ever asked peculiarly. But even when I went into the woods, I didn't go further than not even a quarter mile from the house. I was in screaming distance of the house all the time and heavily armed. And then in 77, spring 77, my little brother was outside playing. My mom was in the house doing some washing dishes or something, I think. And we started hearing this weird noise. It was really creepy. And it was a warm day. We had the windows open so you could hear it inside the house. And I said, "Mom, what the hell is that?" And she goes, "I don't know. I've never heard that before. Go outside and get your little brother." So yeah, I went outside and I picked up Paul. He was just, like 4 or 5 years old then. And he was out in the sandbox playing with his little Tonka trucks. And he had heard it too, but he's like, "Well, must be normal. The adults aren't out here freaking out." And then one of the more adults came out and went, "Yeah, let's go back in the house now. Come on. Mom wants to talk to you." So drug him back in the house. And whatever it was kept doing this for about 45 minutes, about every 2 or 3 minutes. And I kept trying to spot it and see what it was. And every time I'd go outside, it was late enough in the spring that all the leaves were out. So it was just dense canopy, bright green everywhere. and you couldn't see anything in there. It could have been 20 feet back from the lawn and you wouldn't have been able to see it. And that's if it was a human. You know how well they can hide. So
Yeah.
it kept shifting position. Every 2 or 3 minutes it'd be in a different position, and it would make the same angry noise. And finally, after about 45 minutes, that was the end of it, and we never heard that again. And if you guys want to hear it, it's on the Sierra Sounds. He got a recording of one of them being angry and making the same damn sound, which since that I've come to think is probably that's exactly what it is. They're agitated or angry or something, and that's their screw off kind of sound.
Yeah, very good at that. They're very good at mimicking. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, this is the Tasmanian devil sound. That's like,
Oh yeah.
that one. And like every 2.5 minutes or about 45 minutes, it would do it from some other place around the yard. So I had no idea what the hell that was. Never heard of it before. Hadn't heard the Sierra Sounds. I mean, this is in 77.
Yeah.
When were the Sierra Sounds even recorded?
Yeah.
So then about a month later, my folks had a big party, which was very unusual. I think they had like 3 shindigs the whole time I was a kid until I was an adult and moved out. And they had probably about 70 or 80 of their friends there. So the cars were lined up both sides of the driveway, which is like the length of a football field. The whole upper top of the hill where there was open space full of cars. And then even out on the road, there were cars. So the place was packed. This would be like the last place you would expect anything like this to happen, where there's ridiculous amount of people wandering around making a racket, where it's usually really quiet. No, it didn't make any difference. So anyway, one of the adults said, hey, we're running low on beer, got more beer. And one of the other ones said, yeah, I've got a case in the back seat of my car. Somebody want to go get it? And of course, my dad volunteered me immediately because I'm the 15-year-old that's handy
Of
and
course.
sober. Okay, you go get them out. Do I need the keys? No, the door's unlocked. Okay. So I go walking down from the front door, which is like 3 steps down. And there's a big floodlight up there. Now the driveway dips down and goes off into the distance. And the floodlight only penetrates for about the first car and a half. And beyond that, all you can see is vague shapes of cars in darkness. So I get down there and I go around the corner. I'm just going to walk in between the row of cars down the driveway until I get to the third car down, which has the beer in the back seat. So as I come around the corner, there's this guy. I perceive that he's coming up the driveway toward me. And I'm thinking, man, is this guy drunk? He's got frickin' sunglasses on. I'm going to give him some shit. I may be 15, but holy shit, are you drunk, man? So I'm like walking toward him and stuff, thinking of something clever to say. And as I get a little bit closer, I start to realize that he's not really moving. He's just standing there. And the other thing that's kind of peculiar is that the lenses on his glasses are like too far apart.
Yeah.
It's
What
this greenish, it's this greenish blue looking reflection off of them, just like you got big reflective green blue lens sunglasses, but the lenses are too far apart. And he's still too far in the dark that I can't see an outline. All I can see is his sunglasses. And they're at about the right level to be human. So I just keep walking toward him. And I'm like, is this guy just like, what is he doing? Taking a whiz in the driveway or something? Those sunglasses are goofy. Well, by the time I got past the first car and about halfway past the second car, now I was down enough, far enough into the dark that I didn't have all that glare and I could see an outline, which didn't look at all like a human. And I immediately thought, oh shit, it's Big Bastard, which is our local name for this huge bear that was around the area that everybody was worried about. And he got killed about 2 years later. And they weighed him. He was 720 pounds. He actually tried to kill me twice. So I had good reasons to be worried about him. So I'm like, oh crap, there's that huge bear. He's not coming toward me. It's just sitting there. You can just see this big black outline with these 2 huge sunglass looking eyes looking at me at eye level. So that's why I assumed it was that bear right away. And so now I'm thinking, I can't just turn around and run away. I'm only 1 car length from him. He'll catch me instantly. Bears are ridiculously fast. So I decided to slow down and play for time. So I grab the front door and I fidget with it like I'm trying to open it and it won't open. And then I edge over to the back door, which is closer to him. He's standing right on the car that I'm supposed to be getting the beers out of. He's standing right there, whatever he is. So I start fidgeting around with the back door lock, like I can't get that open, and something's going on. Just playing for time, looking at him out of the corner of my eye. Now, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed two more peculiar things. Again, it's not only not human shaped, it's not bear shaped. It's got shoulders, because now I can see the better part of the outline. And it's this gigantic human shaped thing that's squatting on its haunches watching me. And it's my height, 6 feet tall, squatting on its haunches. I'm exactly one car length away from him. There's the back half of the car I'm standing next to, and there's a front half of the car he's standing next to. So now what am I going to do? Now I'm really worried because this ain't the bear. I can at least kind of predict what a bear might do. I have no idea what the hell this thing is going to do. So again, I decide to brazen it out and play for time. And I actually edge closer to him and go around the back of the car. And these cars are almost bumper to bumper. There's barely enough room to squeeze your shins in between the two bumpers. But I decide what I'll do is I'll pretend that I'm trying to get into the trunk, which will get a little bit of steel vehicle in between me and whatever this thing is. In case I have to dive for it, I might be able to get away from it. If I'm just standing out in the open there, I got no chance. So I edge around in between the two cars with my shins wedged in between them practically and start pretending like I'm fiddling around with the trunk. And that was the scariest part, because now I've got my back to him. He's half a car length away from me. He could literally stand up and grab me from right where he was at. So I'm like, oh, damn it, I don't have the key, I say, as if it would understand me. And I ease the rest of the way out in between the two cars. Now I'm on the other side of the cars from him. And I start to like walk like I'm going to go to the back door in the car. And I lean over and then I duck down. And duck down, I run as fast as I freaking could, right next to the line of the cars, back up to where the front porch was. And as soon as I got up there, I dove in the door. I whipped the door open. I went, Dad, there's a big... what was I going to say? There's a Bigfoot? There's a whole crowd full of drunken adults there. They're not going to take me seriously. I'm going to get laughed at. They're not going to do anything. So at the last second, I remembered, oh yeah, the bear. Dad, big bastards out there. So he immediately grabs his 12 gauge and and he grabs my 45-70 and throws that to me, and we go running back out there. But of course, by then it's gone. So why it was sitting there in the driveway waiting for me to walk into it, I don't know. But that was pretty freaking scary.
That is scary. I mean, especially as a kid. Is there any other times, like not when you was a kid, but as you became a researcher and all that, has there ever been any, hair-raising moments where you had one close to you, like in the woods or anything like that later on?
Tons. So many that I literally can't remember them all, not even close. Hair raising during the moment or afterwards when you look at your video? Be specific.
Just kind of something that sticks out to you that's pretty scary.
No, just recently this fall, September, me and Johnny went up camping in the Sapphire Range and couldn't get on our usual campsite. There's people on it already, so we went further down the valley and went to campsite B, which the last time we camped on there, I had Randy Caveman Yazzie and Kevin Lang from the Glag Saga with me, and the place was very active. And this time there was just the two of us there. We didn't have a whole crowd to attract them or anything. And what firewood we could scavenge was punky and or wet, and nothing would burn. So we couldn't get a decent campfire going. And finally we just gave up. And he crawled in his car and I crawled in my tent. And he just reclined the seat back in his car and pulled up the sleeping bag over him, basically tried to sleep that way. I actually had a little tent with an air mattress and the whole thing. And, he had his car going for about 15 minutes to warm it up and stuff. And then about 10 minutes after he stopped the car, all of a sudden I heard this whoosh, whoosh, thud, thud. The heaviest freaking footprints you can imagine, like Godzilla just walked into camp and laid his feet down heavy on purpose. Whatever it was, apparently, we figured out since then was right in between where both of us were, which is about 50 feet. So 25 feet from my tent, about 25 feet from his car. Now, I was on an air mattress, but he was sitting in his car with his feet on the floorboards. And he said, Duke, my car literally shook each time it put a foot down.
Damn.
So I reacted with my usual panic by turning on my flashlight and just laying there to listen if it was going to do anything else, which it didn't make any more noise. So after about 10 minutes, I just turned the flashlight off and went, Oseo. Night. See you in the morning. And I talked to Robin about it afterwards, and there was a big adult in camp that they knew we were coming up there, but they couldn't figure out where we were at because we weren't on our usual campsite. So they were apparently sending them around to all the nearby campsites to see where we were exactly, and this really, really big one found us.
Sounds like.
Yeah, that was unnerving. I've never experienced anything like that before, and like I've said before, I've been, standing right next to a fence when you have like a Clydesdale running by on the other side, and it's loud and the ground shakes and everything, but nothing like that. Initially, when it happened, the first thing I thought is, wow, a moose just came into camp and did a dead stop. And then the very next second I went there, and no moose on earth heavy enough to do that. I know what this is. And the grizzlies better run away too.
Yeah, I bet. Duke, one thing I want to point out, and I know you know this, and, people that's just heard my encounter, they say, okay, you say it was 8 foot, 8.5, possibly 9 foot. So people don't really realize the sheer size of these things. They say, 8 foot, 8.5 foot, you're looking at, 350, 400 pounds. No, you're looking at 900 to 1,200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize the sheer size of these things. They don't.
No, people are really good at underestimating how much they weigh. They get the weight wrong all the time. Oh my God, he was 7.5 feet tall. Must have been 300 pounds. You said he was husky. Yeah, he was 600 pounds at least.
Yeah.
You're not very good at guessing the weight. The only people that are good at guessing weight really are people that are like big game hunters or people that own livestock and stuff. They give pretty accurate guesstimates because they're used to looking at big, heavy animals, and they see that and they go, "That thing's the size of my freaking cow."
Yeah, that's I always say that. I always say he looked like the one I encountered looked like a Brahma bull on 2 legs, exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, they're not only tall, they're massive, and that's the other thing. These guys don't look like the Jack Link's beef jerky messing with Sasquatch guy. They're not built like humans are. They're most of them, especially the adults, the males and stuff. They're a lot wider in the shoulders than we are. They got a lot more heavily built muscle. They've got longer forearms and shorter shins. Their body proportion is different than ours is. So if you put a guy in a Bigfoot suit, you can always tell if it's a guy in a Bigfoot suit or not, because their joints are in the same places as the humans are, and Bigfoots aren't.
Yeah, they had that little trend going on about a month ago, where the people, it was in Colorado, and they was
you
remember that?
Yeah,
I think that was probably staged.
It was fake, 100%. First of all, that's not a regular railroad. It's a little tourist tramway on a narrow gauge track that runs at a regular interval, so they know exactly when it's going by. You don't have to be out there and sit in your Bigfoot suit very long and wait for them to go past. Secondly, no Bigfoot that isn't completely insane and stupid would bother to move when a train was going past. It would sit still and be mistaken for a piece of sagebrush.
Yeah.
Third thing is, I've never seen any pictures, video, or eyewitness statements telling me that they saw a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or Yeti with bell bottoms. Go look at the hair on it.
That's the first thing I noticed, man. Like when it was walking, like you can see the suit like wrapping around the calf and all that. It was way too fake.
Another thing, again, body proportion. Although he's doing the bent over walk thing pretty good, arms too short,
Way too short.
legs wrong length.
Yes.
And then another thing is that there's actually a Bigfoot tourist group that operates about 20 miles from there. And somebody got a picture of one of their members wearing half that suit. Do I need to continue?
No. Now I'm sure Colorado is full of Bigfoot, but that just wasn't that was
That was not a Bigfoot. Now, when you see a video of something that's like 8 feet tall and about 3 times as wide as it looks like it should be, that's a Bigfoot.
Another little thing I wanted to touch on before I ask you what you think they are. I can remember me and you talking 3 months ago, 4 months ago, where, it has been reported that it looks like a Bigfoot, it walks like a Bigfoot, but it's way too damn big to be a Bigfoot. What do you think that is? Like the track found that was like,
Well, I found one in May that was too big to be a Bigfoot, in my opinion, and it was shaped a little bit wrong too. It was probably a giant. So there's other things out there besides them, and then there's the Janoskwa, and they're hybrids between the two at some point way back in the past. So they've got largely aggressive behavior from their giant side, and then they've got the huge size of the Bigfoot, and tend to look like them, can easily be mistaken for them. And nowadays they're not wearing the stone applique armor that they used to back in the days when they were called the stone coats, or the shining ones, or the stone giants. That was all from their rubbing themselves with pitch or pine sap or whatever to get their hair nice and sticky, and then they'd roll around in gravel and it would stick to them. And then they'd do it again and roll around in gravel and it would stick to them. And after about 3 applications, they were stone coated. That's how they got the name stone coats. They look like big old stone trolls. And so when the natives who, were using a bone and or flint arrowhead or spearhead was trying to protect themselves from one of these things, it would just bounce off them. It was completely ineffective. It wasn't until the advent of the locals getting boomsticks from a white man that all of a sudden Janoskwa quit using applique armor, because it didn't seem to work so good against a 70 caliber ball from a musket. It would still go in.
No, not at all. I agree. Let me ask you this. What do you think Bigfoot is?
Bigfoot are people. They're hybrids, relic hominids. Catch them DNA study, catch them DNA study, catch them DNA study.
Yeah.
You just did an interview with Steve over on How to Hunt that, he was kind enough to put behind a paywall.
Oh.
Yeah. My 3-part interview that I did with Melba was free, and it was actually last year. So I was the one who coaxed her back out to do anything in public after almost decade-long hiatus.
Yeah, I've talked to her. I think eventually she will come on my show, but she just kind of got over being sick and all that. But
the reason she did Steve's show is he put it behind a paywall to be a fundraiser for her.
On that, well, I mean, if it's for her, I mean, I guess that's good.
Yeah, as long as she's getting all of it, and
Yeah. I just like to have her on just to pick a little bit. I mean, she said she would. I mean, we'll see.
No, she's pretty busy too. I don't want to pester her either. And I'm waiting until she has the next phase of her study done to have her back on my show again anyway. And with Steve, she was probably just talking about all the same stuff she was talking about with me last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least he got her on, and hopefully he's doing the right thing with the money,
Well, giving her money is a good way to have anything happen in the Bigfoot field, because she's hard science. DNA doesn't lie. She's one of the best out there. Everybody that says anything bad about her are either jealous or trolls or paid to say bad things about her.
Yeah, of course. And they got them kind of people out there. That's for sure. We've definitely talked about them kind of people. let me ask you this. Let's get into other cryptids. Like, let's get into Dogman. I mean, where do you think that comes from?
Planet Sirius. How the hell do I know where Dogman comes from? There's
mean-
more than one kind of Dogman.
Well, no, I understand that, but do you think that it's like DNA being manipulated, or, I mean,
It is with the newer ones, the GMO ones that three-letter agencies are making.
yeah. But what about the Dogman? You know that they're finding on hieroglyphics in Egypt and stuff like that.
Yeah, these things have been around for a long time, and like I said, there's more than one thing going on there. There's werewolves too. You can be cursed into being a shapeshifter. Skinwalkers do it to themselves on purpose. Those
Yeah.
are all werebeasts. And then there's the actual dogmen that are, got turned into the werewolves, but they can't shapeshift back and forth. They're just in that shape for good. And then there's the dog-headed cynocephaly that are back in the old legends of like Marco Polo and from back in the Middle East and even medieval times. And they were trading with the human civilizations around them, selling them fabrics and, mercenarying it for them when they wanted an extra special shock troop in their army that'll just obliterate everything in front of them. They were apparently extremely expensive, but well worth it, according to all reports. And so there's definitely more than one thing going on there. And according to the information I've got, there actually were some of the dog-headed people here in North America too. Some of the cynocephaly made it over here. And there's a report from one tribe to the north of me that they had a whole village of them living on the other side of the mountain from them for about like a generation or a little bit longer. And then they didn't really have very much communication with them or anything. And then at some point they just noticed that like they were gone. They don't know what happened to them. They moved somewhere else or what, but just like they weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
But they never had any fighting with them or anything. They just kind of ignored each other and got along, I guess.
If you look on a cryptid map, I mean, it shows it like state by state. You got the Mothman, you got all these, they got hundreds of different kinds of cryptids, and it just makes you wonder if it's all just not dark government making this stuff.
No, this stuff is way older than the government's capacity to manufacture it, which doesn't mean they aren't making some. You start seeing these new cryptids that the natives don't have a name for, there's a real hot, strong candidate.
Yeah.
Crawlers. Crawlers
think,
are GMO.
Yeah. Do you think it could have something to do with ETs?
Yep, they're also doing it. Robin will tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. So
actually, the most interesting report I got was from one of my friends who's in communication with their local Sasquatch, and they also have one of the two actually of the original dogmen that hang around with their little tribe occasionally. And we got a question to one of them, and we actually got an answer back, which we got two questions to him, and the answer's back. But the one in point here was, hey, are there actually these GMO dogmen around? Is somebody making dogmen? And they confirmed that is the case. And they had, in fact, run into one of them. Now, at this point, you're, of course, going, oh, God, please, did he tell you what happens when one runs into it? Yeah, he did. Here's what he said. Yes, they exist. I've run into one before. And when I do, it's fun to tear them to pieces.
That's something else for
So
sure.
you got to wonder about the, with these GMO things, they've got to have them tagged and tracking them.
Probably.
Keeping an eye on, and that's according to the rumors too, that they put them out in the field for a while and see what they do and stuff and keep an eye on where they're at and then go retrieve them again most of the time. So they're watching this thing's chip blipping away merrily, and all of a sudden it's flatline, and they're like, where'd the chip break? It's not moving. Better go retrieve him. And when they get there, there's nothing to retrieve. He's all torn to pieces and spread over about 20 acres.
Yeah.
And they're going, What did that? Do you hear the recent report from the trucker that's going all over the place? It had one run alongside of his truck, pulled out his 45 and capped its ass. And
Haven't
then it
heard.
rolled down into the ditch. This one's been around for like a year. Where you been? It took him a while to slow his truck back down again and turn it around. And by the time he got down to where it had went flying into the ditch, there was another car stopped. And people looking down there with flashlights. And he said, is there anything down there? And they said, well, we saw this thing down there kind of flopping around. And then another thing came out of the woods and took it back into the woods. We don't know what it was.
Oh,
And
geez.
he's like, well, you guys better get out of here. And then according to him, a few weeks later, 3-letter agency members stopped and detained him and told him they were very unhappy for wrecking one of their assets.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard that story. I have not.
Joe Barger. Christine in chat knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Let's get on the, there's one that I like to talk about. It's probably not a good thing to talk about it, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about the Beast of Seven Chutes.
Yeah, that's the Gugweed.
Yeah. So, what you
Everybody looks at that picture and they're like, well, it's pareidolia, or, it's something other than what people are saying that it is. What's the white thing that it's got under its arm? Oh, that's a white plastic bag or something.
The dog, wasn't it? Like a little
Yeah.
dog.
Well, I'm here to tell you that all those skeptics and everything are full of bullshit. Because I actually talked to the forestry person in Canada that did an investigation on that. And here's the rest of the story you don't get from looking at the picture. About an hour, less than an hour before that picture was taken, so an older couple were camping at a nearby campground, and their full-size poodle was accosted by this weird thing that walked into camp, wrung its neck, put it under its arm, and walked back out again. They called in, a weird animal attacked our dog and took off with it. So forestry person had to show up and take the report. Well, less than an hour later, this guy was walking along the top of that train trestle and randomly took that shot of, guess what? The suspect holding the dead full-size poodle under its arm. So that's not pareidolia. That is a full-size dead poodle there for you to scale it with. The thing's probably about 7 feet tall. That's a Gugweed. And since then, other people have gotten pictures of it. There's been 4 or 5 good ones that have come out this year. The best one that anybody has taken, as far as a close-up shot of one, is the one that Christy Sci-Fi got, of one sitting in the bushes peeking at her, and she snapped a quick picture and then gunned the engine and got the hell out of there. Good job, Christy. And even though he's far enough back into the bushes that he's blending in pretty well with them, you can see the whole outline of his face, and his the snout is far enough forward that you can see some of the color on that. It doesn't blend with the bush as much. And he's got this, baboon looking face. And as you're going to see on the upcoming super documentary, Inevitably Finding Bigfoot, we show the capture, the picture, and then we show the comparison side by side with a skull of a known, presumed to be extinct creature, which is where you should always default to. When there's a cryptid, go look in the fossil record. Is this something that was around that we already know about and we just think they're extinct when they're not? Well, these things I don't think are very plentiful, but they're around. And there could be, again, some other, outside force that's creating more of them, because there didn't used to be nearly this many, as far as I can determine. But the skull that we got, that I was digging through the fossil record looking at skulls, and I found the one that was the closest candidate for the description of the Gugwe, and that was 7-8 years ago. I've had this thing sitting in my files. And then finally, Christy came up with this really spectacular picture of it. And, I went, hey, here's the picture. I've got this old picture of the skull. Let's look at the two and compare them. They're identical. The orbits of the eyes, the length of the snout, the width of the skull, everything's identical. There's like 9. If you look, once you look at it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that it's anything other than what this skull is, or something very closely related to it, or descended from it. And it's from a presumed to be extinct genus of baboons. And its paleo name is got dino in it, which is, they always put dino in front of the biggest, baddest, scariest version of whatever it is that they're about to name. Dinosaurs, terrible lizards.
Yeah.
Dinosuchus, terrible crocodile. Dinopithecus, terrible baboon. Standing on all fours, it's as tall as a human. It's looking at you eye to eye. If it stands up on its hind legs, 8 or 9 feet tall. Now, we don't know. I don't know if they've got fossils of its tail or if they're presuming that it had one. It might not have. In which case, it's 100% dead ringer for the descriptions of the Gugwe. Behavior would match too. Working groups, very aggressive.
Do you think that it could have been a Bigfoot that morphed into that?
Yeah, no.
No. Totally different.
No, yeah, completely different looking thing. You can tell by the shape of the skull and the orbits of the eyes and everything. It's a completely different thing. It's a giant baboon essentially,
Yeah.
and the Sasquatch don't like them, and the Dogmen don't like them, and apparently, nothing but evil cryptids would have anything to do with them, because they're nasty and aggressive and untrustworthy. And Christy could tell you some stories about some of the stuff they've done to Tikhop's local Tsukulu Sasquatch Bigfoot tribe down there.
Yeah. You like to call them face eaters.
Yeah, well, I don't like to call them that. That's one of their nicknames.
Damn. That's where are you at with like the
You want to know why they call them face eaters? Nobody ever asked that question. They call them face eaters.
No, I don't know.
Let me go back to Sasquatch. It's been reported a few times that they'll twist the head off a deer to kill them. That's their usual killing method. They just wring your neck, splat, you're dead. Sometimes if they want to bring a live lunch home with them, though, they'll just snap a couple legs. They'll carry it back that way. And the deer is still making a ruckus and stuff, but it can't run away. They can put it wherever they want it. Come back later, wring its neck. Kind of like bringing the live chicken home and, slaughtering it right before the big roast or whatever kind of stuff that was popular back in the olden days. The Gugwe want to make sure that you don't make any noise and give away your presence, but they do want to keep you alive, because dripping and twitching is better than inert, apparently. So they bite your lower jaw off so you can't scream, but you probably don't die of blood loss or shock immediately.
Yeah. That's that's out there, man. Where are you at with little people?
Hopefully I'm on their good side and they're like me.
Can you talk about them a little bit, because I have no information on them?
Oh, there's actually plenty out there on YouTube. Go surf around. It all depends on what part of the country you're in. Over here, it's the Nurumbi, Namuragar little people that pretty much rule the roost over here, and used to be, probably still are, friends with the local Crow tribe and don't really like anybody else. And they're, even according to their allies, they're extremely dangerous. So it's not like anybody's going to go out and, hey, I want to go make friends with the little people. The best you can hope for is leave them some treats. Maybe they won't shoot you full of poison arrows. That's about
it. And I've actually heard reports of like little people. They actually have clothing. Their hair's braided.
Yeah, they're not Sasquatch. They wear clothes. There's very few types of little people that aren't reported as wearing some kind of clothing. Most of them wear clothing. Ones out here dressed just like the local natives used to.
And braided
buckskin looking stuff, hair braided, the whole thing.
That's crazy.
They look just like little miniature natives, except for they're only about 18 inches, 2 feet tall, and their head's too big and round, and they've got, shark-like teeth.
David Balak says, how is that known? Are you talking about Gugwe, or are you talking about the little people? Let's see. Got anything here? Hope you all are good. I'm not going to keep you too long, Duke. I'm going to keep you for about another 10 minutes. That'll be an hour.
Yeah, I can hang around a little bit longer, but then I got to get back to it because I still got to finish editing, processing, and uploading the show for my channel for tonight.
Yeah, guys, he did this for me. So you guys be sure to ask some questions or do your thing. Actually, I'm on borrowed time too. I got about 10 minutes and then I gotta go. Long Island Bigfoot.
I'm just glad I made it back here in time. I mean, I literally plugged in the internet and got the computer on at exactly the top of the hour. That's when I walked in the door.
Yeah.
Erwin Saunders is pretty well believed to be doing everything digitally, and it's fake.
Really?
Yep.
I've never heard of Erwin Saunders.
He does the little people videos on. He's got regular ones.
Yeah.
I have not investigated him very far, but people that should know seem to think that it's not real, which is too bad because it looks great.
All right, you got a question. It says, let me highlight that real quick. It says, question, what do you think about cryptids in UK compared to the USA?
You guys are lucky because the UK is so tiny, you hardly have that many packed in there. There's a few over there, you know. Wales has their cryptids, Scotland has cryptids, Ireland has traditional cryptids. There's cryptids in Britain. You know, you've got the black cats that keep getting spotted over there all the time. And those are probably from private collectors that had collections that at the point where they became illegal to have, instead of doing the right thing, they just released the animals and let them run around. And the other thing, of course, is occasionally you get reports of Bigfoot-like creatures over there, which would be the woodwoes, which is a Bigfoot-like creature. It's, you know, they're relatives, but they don't get as big. They're on the smaller scale, and you probably don't have that many of them running around there. And then, of course, you've got the ongoing reports of the big gray man, Ben McDewey, up in Scotland. It's been cited for years and years and years and years and years and years, and people occasionally get terrified and almost kill themselves trying to run down off the top of the mountain to get away from them.
Long Island Bigfoot says, do they have pug wedgies out west?
I don't think we have any around here. I haven't heard. Is the furthest west report I've heard of a pukwudgie that might actually be a pukwudgie is, of course, down in Texas, where we had the guy on my show where him and his girlfriend were being harassed by him. And, you know, they have something similar to that down in Mexico, too. The duendes is what they call them. So is a duende, which is their little version of a goblin, the same thing as a pukwudgie. Well, descriptions don't really match. So might not be the same thing. But we don't actually get reports of pukwudgies or something out here, which, if you think about it, isn't that surprising because we've got this own, you know, tribe of little people that have this area staked down. And they're very tough and aggressive. And if pukwudgies come in their territory, they're going to be dead pukwudgies. So they probably don't try and come out here.
Can you tell me the difference? This is, you know, a personal question. What's the difference between a pukwudgie and like a, you know, little person?
Pukwudgies are goblinoids. They don't look like people at all. Some of them even report that they've got this, like, they can transform themselves either into or to look like a porcupine. And there's been a report in here where it looks like a pot-bellied goblin with porcupine quills coming off its back and the top of its head. So, no, they don't look like regular little people.
You have another question from DW. It says, question, what is the oldest species? I can't read that. Can you read it?
How long do they live to get? We really don't know. We know that the Sasquatch probably live quite a lot longer than we do, because there's been some that have been interacting with the same family for years, generations, actually. But I think that's unusual. I think most of them probably don't live tremendously much longer than us, like maybe, you know, 150, 200 years or something, which realistically, genetically, we should be able to live that long. But our environment's so toxic right now, and they keep putting things in our foods and stuff to make us die sooner, so we don't live that long.
All the preservatives and all that.
And the stuff in the air and in the water and everywhere else.
Yep. All right. You had enough. I think you just answered this. It's from Christine. Anyone know the life expectancy of these creatures? I think you just.
I think it also depends on how much time they spend here. If they spend more time on the other side of the veil, time doesn't seem to flow there. So, yeah, if they're spending a lot of time not on our three-dimensional reality, but on the other side of the veil, however long you want to spend over there, clock doesn't start again until you come back through.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. All right, guys. Got about 5 minutes left. I don't really have any more questions. I pretty much asked, what the first time you ever seen one. Oh, I got one. Have you ever seen a dog man?
No, but I filmed 2 of them.
You filmed 2.
They were just into the group of Sasquatch, caught them randomly by accident, didn't notice them until afterwards. That's when I started noticing that, hey, apparently there's dogmen in Montana because I'm getting them on video. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It didn't really surprise me that much because I keep hearing that in other parts of the country where there's people that have fairly good sized groups of Sasquatch that have an established area that they've been in for a long time. And they do have some dogmen that they interact with or even a little hang around with them and stuff. So apparently, as long as the dogman is willing to play by the rules that they have established in their area, there's no problem with them being there. Yeah, Montana is weird. It's not only a wild place, it's weird. Recently in Montana here, they had, speaking of megaliths, which I'm going to abruptly change the topic.
Go ahead.
Some of you know I've been over there with my group now for like 3 years, documenting the Montana megaliths. Julie Ryder has a web page up on this Montana megaliths. You can check it out. And she's had other people working with her that are kind of going around the area documenting some of this stuff and pictures and video. And like, this doesn't look natural. This looks really weird. And one of the things that's actually on private property is called Sage Wall. Now, Sage Wall is about 300 feet long and I don't know, taller than a human, has flat sides and flat top. Well, that's probably not natural. Really doesn't look natural. So our local giant expert, one of their local giant experts here in Montana, Tim Alberino, and out-of-stater L.A. Marzulli showed up and surveyed it. And of course, they're both experts at big old megaliths down in South America, have been there repeatedly, and all the giants and everything. And they looked at it and said, well, this is natural. Okay. Well, then just about a month ago, the Bright Insight channel, which is bigger than both of them, 1.6 million subs, Jimmy decides that since he's right here in the continental U.S. and he heard about the Sage Wall thing, he's going to fly up there and see it before it becomes winter. And when he gets up there, the family that owns the Sage Wall has actually cleared back all the trees and stuff around us, because this was just out in the woods. They bought the property, and then after a while, they went back to see what was on it and went, what the hell is this thing? There's like a huge wall back here on our property. When did anybody build this? Well, according to the local records, nobody ever owned that property. So nobody built it. It's just been sitting there for decades, hundreds of years, who knows how long. Well, according to the weathering and everything, of course, then Alberino and L.A. Marzulli promptly pronounced it to be natural. But when little Jimmy showed up here, he ran into a guy that they had working on it already, who is a field geologist. And he has ground penetrating radar. And he's already surveyed most of it. And several interesting things about this supposedly natural wall. If you take something that's like steel or iron and throw it at it, it sticks to it. That entire 300-foot wall is magnetized. His ground penetrating radar has revealed that the wall is twice as tall as it looks. Half of it's buried under the ground. And underneath that, it has a foundation. Not only that, but there's another wall identical to it, parallel, that's completely buried under the ground at this point, that he also found with his ground penetrating radar. So, little Timmy Alberino and little L.A. Marzulli, you little boys want to tell me again how this thing is natural?
Yeah.
Grab your fork and knife, start eating your crow, sit down in the corner and shut the hell up, and let the real researchers do the work on this. The reason both of you guys failed miserably on this is because this is up north. We have winter half a year here. When there's a teeny crack in rock and water goes in it and freezes solid, okay, science quiz, what happens?
It's too damn cold. That's what happened.
No, you don't even know either. What happens is the water expands when it freezes. That cracks the rock. So if it sits there for enough hundreds and thousands of years, every teeny fissure in it is going to start working itself open and cracking because of the process of ice forming, freezing, expanding, and cracking the rock. Why do you don't see that in Pumapunku? Why don't you see that in Peru? They don't have any fucking snow to do that. That's why, you dumbasses. And you live in fucking Montana. You should know better, Alberino. So anyway, obviously they were wrong. It's probably way older than the crap in South America, which probably doesn't date back past 20,000 years ago. This thing might have been sitting here for several glacial cycles already.
Anyway, Duke, I appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate you doing this for me. Everybody in the chat, I appreciate you. Anybody, Duke, how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, YouTube, Facebook, World Bigfoot Central, or what is it, World Bigfoot TV? World Bigfoot TV, I think. And then Montana Bigfoot Project that shows all the actual field reports. Kelly Shaw's over there a ton posting stuff from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch too. And then I'm also on Twitter, so you can find me on Twitter. What is BMR's got a question?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't even know he was in here. There we go. Question for Duke.
So what is it, BMR?
We'll wait on that. We'll give Bigfoot Michigan Rob the time of day.
Yeah, Rob turned out a really good Bigfoot story here recently on his channel. Y'all should go check it out.
I know his first Bigfoot story. I didn't know if he had another one.
No, it's not his story. It's a story that somebody else sent in. That's very heartwarming and Christmassy.
All right. It says lurking. Yes, it is. What is up, my man? Element. Laughing my ass off. Love you, bro. Just playing.
Okay, let me answer that question. You're wasting my time, so I can't get my video done and have it turned out tonight. That's what's going on.
That's funny, man. Well, Duke, appreciate it, man. I will text you in a couple days, see what you're up to. Thank you for coming on my show and a little bit of time, and thank you for giving me the time of day. And the chat, everybody, thank you guys. I'll see you guys later, okay?
So
Peace.
Make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee.